Well, he's been called the most infamous pedophile in American history. We're still talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And there's even more information out. We're going to get you updated on all that in this blended episode where we're kind of combining our podcast and YouTube channel at the same time. So, welcome to History Tonight. Glad to have you on board the Charlie Crime Train. James, we got a great program tonight.
We do. And we've had, I think you and I have kind of been on a monthly sabbatical where we're kind of just taking some time off.
Yeah, taking a little bit off, yeah.
The summertime, So, this will be nice to get back in the swing of things.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, we kept the podcast up every week. So
We did.
And today we're doing a combine. We're putting the YouTube presentation and the podcast presentation on the same time that we're releasing at the first of the week.
Correct. Yep, that's good.
Yep. Well, there's plenty of stuff to talk about tonight with all this thing that's happening with Jeffrey Epstein. That's for sure.
Well, I was looking over the last 262 episodes that we've had, a podcast that we had. Yeah.
262?
That's just podcasts. That's not the crime talk. That's just the podcasts.
I'm tired already. Just thinking about that.
And I look back over there, and you've already done a large series on Epstein. So why the additional interest now?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that's a very good question, by the way. Very good question. The reason is because there is additional interest now. Mm-hmm. Because during the transition, I guess, with the last presidential election,
right,
a lot of the people were told that all of the Epstein information would be actually released,
mm-hmm.
and that there would be full transparency,
mm-hmm.
and that it all would be out there. And even the Attorney General Pound Bondi said, I've got all these things on my desk that we're getting ready to release. Supposed to be a pile, big list, and everything like that. And guess what? They decided that there were things that they were not going to release.
Okay.
And so what does that say to you when they say, hey, move on along here, nothing to see here, but we're not going to release certain things. So that generates a whole lot of interest, right? A lot of curiosity,
Especially those of us that like to investigate. Yeah.
Yeah, especially as crime junkies, and we got a host of them out there that follow the program. And so there's been a whole lot of, and it's very interesting, even in, if you look at President Trump and his own base, you are seeing that there's a little division there now because a lot of some of the people in his base are saying, hey, what's going on here? The last president would not release it, and now you are not releasing it. Your administration is not releasing it.
Right.
So why? I mean, why was there a change?
Right.
Why now are we being told just move along now? Move along now. Nothing to see here. James, that's like when you go down the street and you see a park bench and it says wet paint on it.
Yeah.
And what you got to reach over there, right? You got to touch it. So when you say move along here, nothing to see here, we want to see it, right? We want to.
That's
hear
right.
It.
That's right.
So that's the reason why we came back and did, and plus there's new information now,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
From the first one, a lot of new stuff out there that has come out, a little bit at a time, and there's a whole lot. So that's why we did another series on it.
Well, for those who are just tuning in and haven't really had time to catch up on our past podcasts, who is Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, unless you've been living under a rock on an island, as we say often, most of the people probably know who he is. He is, he is the most infamous pedophile in America. That's the way I've been introducing the session for the last.
It's a good portrayal,
yeah. And he's probably the wealthiest pedophile in America. Jeffrey Epstein was born up in New York. They actually described him as a little bit on the chubby side, but a very, very smart young man. One thing we pointed out in the podcast that I did not know before that we found on this round when we did this particular series is that he actually played the piano and was a pretty good a pianist from what I hear, even as a young man. And he was so smart that while he was growing up, he would actually tutor other children, other young people, and he would make money that way. So he was already kind of an entrepreneur, you might say, as he was a young man growing up. He went to college, but here's the really interesting part about this is that even though he went to college, um, it's very interesting that he actually ended up becoming a teacher without a college degree.
Becomes a teacher without a college degree.
Yeah, yeah. He went to college and he dropped out of college. He was studying, math and math sciences, this sort of thing, and then he dropped out of there and he turned around and got a job at a very elite school. I mean, this school was where the best of the best went. Probably cost, even back then, 40, $50,000 in tuition. So
Wow.
very wealthy children there, and he landed a job teaching math there in that particular. You might kind of. It's not really a boarding school, but kind of a preschool before you get into college. Prep
Yeah.
school, prep
Yeah.
school,
Well,
prep
you
school.
mentioned that he had a special talent of being able to play the piano, but there was other stuff that you mentioned as well. And what was that? His special
Well,
talents.
he had that special talent. The real talent that we see actually happens into what he does after his teaching job.
Ah,
But to get back with the teaching job, this was something really interesting. Again, this is new stuff that we did not put in the first series. When he got that job, he was hired by a guy by the name of Donald Barr. Donald Barr. And the interesting thing about Donald Barr was he was in the OSS, which actually was the precursor to the to our CIA. This was what the CIA really originated at.
right.
So basically, Donald Barr was a CIA spy.
Hmm.
And then he became the headmaster at this school and another school. And he was known as a guy, and you can imagine most CIA guys this way. He was a guy who thought outside the box.
Hmm.
So when you think about the fact that he was certainly charmed by Jeffrey Epstein, and he was certainly known for doing things outside the box. So it's really not that extraordinary that Donald Barr would do this because I mean, I think everybody in America knows that it's always good to get a degree, but just because you don't have a degree doesn't know you may know more than people who have a degree.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So he landed that job, but then there became some problems, and after about a couple of years teaching there, he lost the job. They asked him to leave.
Mm. Hmm. Well, and how did he get the teaching job without a degree? And was it because he knew Donald Barr?
Well, because Donald Barr, one thing you're going to find about Jeffrey Epstein is that one thing that he does exceptionally well is he learns to connect or collect good contacts, and he learns to network those contacts, and he was extremely good at that. The reason why he lost his teaching job,
Uh-oh.
there's a couple of thoughts on it. There are some people who say, well, he lost it because he wasn't a very good teacher, but I don't really find that to be true because I have read other things that said he was doing an outstanding job teaching them.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, one of the parents, in a plush article written about Jeffrey Epstein, one of the parents said to him, walked up to him and said, why are you teaching math at this school? You should be working on Wall Street,
Right.
and said I should introduce you to the head of Bear Stearns, which was his next job. And sure enough, after but the reason why some people say that he really lost it, and I think this would give us a really good tie-in to what happened with him.
Uh-huh.
They said that he would he as a teacher he would try to push himself as just one of the kids, and even though he was older than the kids, in his 20s,
Right.
he wanted to be one of them, and so he would go to their parties where they would have underage drinking, and he began to pay a lot of attention to, and here's the key to watch for, those young girls, and
Uh-huh.
so that got him in trouble in the teaching job, and that ultimately is what landed him in jail, where he took his own life.
Wow. So what did he do after the school?
Well,
And we know that he worked on Wall Street. So,
yeah, yeah. After
but what?
after that, he went with Bear Stearns.
Okay, Bear Stearns. Okay.
Bear Stearns, and he first of all he just went in as an assistant there on one of the desks, that type of thing. But they found that he had a very unique skill. He was able to, of course, he was a very intelligent guy. I don't think anybody would doubt that,
No.
except he wasn't very smart about his personal life. But he was very intelligent in the finance community, and he had a unique ability of helping wealthy clients uh, be able to move their money in a way to save money on their taxes. In other words, he was able to hide money in certain areas where they would not be taxed like they would in other areas. So he really became a not only a money manager but a money mover. And the really interesting thing about this, and this is something we brought out in the podcast, if a guy was doing that out in the world and he was connected to a say a drug organization
Right. Right.
or anything else or selling weapons or anything illegally or anything without that if he didn't that's called money laundering, right? Money
That's
laundering.
right. That's what they call
So,
it.
so the only difference is that if you have if you have a license and you're on Wall Street, you can participate in money laundering because that's really exactly what he was doing. He was, and he became so well known at that Bear Stearns began to give him a special place in the organization, a special division that he worked in, where he only worked with the most wealthy clients they had, and he would help them hide their money from the IRS, help them. And when I say hide, I'm not saying necessarily did anything illegal at that point, but he was able to use the tax laws and help the wealthy avoid paying taxes in very 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 big large sums of money.
So he was able to find loopholes in the IRS's documents to
Exactly.
be able to hide.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say hide money, but put money where it's less likely to be taxed.
Yeah, and at that time too, he certainly one thing that we find that he learned to do at that point was he also learned to do a lot of overseas investing, and
Uh-huh.
that's where a lot of people, a lot of the wealthy
Yep.
people, will put their money overseas to avoid IRS, uh, taxes and that sort
Shell
of thing.
companies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shell company. There you go. That's the word, shell company.
Yeah.
He became extremely good at that, and that's where I think that he began to actually find his, develop his own wealth as an individual as he was doing this. Guess what?
Tell me.
He lost that job too.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Now here he is at here he is at Bear Stearns. He's doing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
He's in the 80s and he makes a limited partner. And that's pretty
Oh,
good at his age because he was
yeah.
very very young at that point. Made a limited partner, but in just less than a year after that, they had to ask him leave Bear Stearns. And there's an old saying that if you fly too close to the sun, you're going to get burned, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And so he became so well at helping these people doing exactly what Bear Stearns wanted him to do, by the way.
Yep.
He became so well at that that he began to violate a couple of laws. And the biggest thing, when you look at it, it was a reg violation, REG reg violation. And it was that when you're doing this, when you're making these deals, you have to register these deals. And there were several deals that he did that he did not register, and so Bear Stearns did not want that to look bad upon the company, so they asked him to leave. But at the same time, uh, wink, wink, he always had a good relationship with Bear Stearns,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
even even after he left. I mean, his own money. I mean, a lot of his own money was tied up in Bear Stearns all the way up to when we had this last housing uh, terrible housing crisis and economical deal when the
Right.
banks went bankrupt and Bear Stearns went bankrupt. all the way up to when Bear Stearns went bankrupt, he still had money with Bear Stearns. So it wasn't kind of it was a very amiable type of a thing when he partied ways with Bear Stearns.
Wow. Okay, that's a little more of that information than I didn't know about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a real quick break and get into our crazy crook story for this week.
Now you know, James. Everybody, graduation is a very wonderful time. Now we've already through graduation. Now we're getting ready to go back to school, right?
Right.
I know that in our
Starts next week.
organization, yeah, and in our organization, we do a lot of our security company. We do a whole lot of armed armed guarding schools, especially private schools and
Right.
faith-run schools, the Jewish schools, this sort of thing. So
Magnet schools.
yeah, our guys are already out in schools now. Our armed officers
Uh-huh.
providing safety and security to all kinds of students, and they're already there because a lot of the teachers are back and
Right.
that sort of thing. But in graduation time, it's a very special time, and so this one guy decided to throw a graduation party for his son, and he wanted it to be very special. And so they invited, a couple of hundred, 200, 300 people to this big party, and actually gave him that party at like a $3 million mansion. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, he was certainly probably called the father of the year at this point.
Yeah.
Everything's going good, but as these parties do, they get out of hand, and so the police were called. Because
Uh-oh.
of noise and that sort of thing. When
Right.
the police got there, they found a lot of underage drinking.
Uh-oh.
I've had a lot of loud noise, but there's something else they found, James.
Oh no.
They found out that the guy the father of the year, who
Yeah.
was throwing this, elaborate party for his son, he was throwing it at a mansion that he did not even own. he was
Okay.
the he was the family was out of the country, out of way, and
Uh-huh.
he was their landscaper.
Oh, he was
Yeah,
oh,
he
he
was
was a
the
gardener.
landscape gardener.
Okay.
Yeah. So this gardener throws this party for his son at
Oh
the
no.
at this rich, wealthy mansion,
Right, right.
And at first he, lies, says that he's the owner, and then they found out, yeah, well, we don't think you are. And then he said, well, I'm the grandson, and no, I'm not. And well, it got down to it that you don't do stuff like that because number one is breaking and entering.
Right.
So he ended up going to jail and facing several serious charges for it.
Wow.
Another interesting thing about it is that they also confiscated, the police did, over $3,000 in cash. And the way they did that
Three.
is because this father of the year
Uh-huh.
was charging a cover charge for
Oh,
the people to come in.
a cover
So
charge.
in addition to using somebody's mansion to throw a party for his son, he was making money off of it by paying a cover charge, and the police ended up
Oh,
confiscating around $3,000 of it. So that guy indeed qualified for Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week, don't you think?
absolutely. Absolutely. Breaking and entering.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
you're going to go to jail for that. Go back to our story. What exactly did he do at Bear Stearns before he was fired, before he's let go?
Well,
Have
like I
you,
said, he had a whole lot of wealthy clients, and
yeah.
he was doing these trades, and every one of these trades you have to register them, and there were some of them that he did not register, and that's called a
Oh,
reg violation.
okay. Yeah.
And so again, instead of Bear Stearns taking the blunt of it and it looking bad on their company, they got with him and worked out some deal, and he left them, and then he started his own company.
So the SEC got involved in
Yeah, yeah, the trading police, I
security
call them,
division.
yeah,
Yeah.
the security
Yeah.
division. Yeah, they got involved, but I mean, he didn't. I don't think maybe a slap in the wrist. He didn't get in any serious problems with it, but it was by this time he knew all the tricks and was very good at what he was doing. And so then when he left Bear Stearns, he decided to go out on his own. And of course, everybody says, well, where did he get his clients?
Uh-huh.
He he developed a lot of relationships while he was at Bear Stearns, and
Yeah.
so he was able to take. So he was able to find a couple of extremely wealthy clients, and in this new business model that he had, James, the idea was that he would not even you could not even do business with him. He would not even help you unless you had at least $1 billion to invest.
Wow.
And so this brought him into a very high range of wealthy people to help.
Yeah, the elite.
Yeah, the elite, and to be able to hide their money, and you think if a lot of people said they're well, where did he? I don't know about his clients. He doesn't have 10, 20. He doesn't have the clients that other people have. You don't need a lot of clients if you have billionaires that you're helping. You take 5% of billionaire
Yeah.
every time you move a trade for them and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You're going to get wealthy pretty well overnight,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is one of the ways that he was able to develop his wealth.
Wow. Wow. I know that in the podcast you mentioned that he was connected to some foreign entities, go unnamed. But why do some people think that he is connected to the spy world as a result?
Well, the idea is by connections. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no way that people are going to find out. Say, hey, all of a sudden, people are going to say that we know that he was a member of this organization or that organization
Yeah.
because the spies keep this thing secret as it goes. But
Right. Right.
we do know that he did a lot of work behind the scenes and was involved in it. He actually was found. Flying on a plane to the Pentagon on a private plane with a guy by the name of Lease, and this guy was a weapons broker. And
Ah.
when you look at Charlie Lease, when you look at Lease and what he's done, you can even trace what he did all the way back, and some of the other people that he began to associate with. You can even trace them back to their own involvement in the Contra, the Iran Contra deal, where Reagan got in trouble.
Uh-huh.
When they
Uh-huh.
were trading arms to try to help in that particular war, and so we find that he was involved with all kinds of shady people, and you got to ask yourself a question: why would Jeffrey Epstein be on a plane with one of the most infamous weapons dealer in the world going to the Pentagon? You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
he was moving into that world, and there's so many other ties. Here's a really interesting thing: Donald Barr, as we mentioned at the very beginning, was in the old CIA.
Yeah.
But guess what? When Jeffrey Epstein was arrested the second time and placed into not a glamour slammer but a real jail, it was William Barr that was the Attorney General that did that, and William Barr is the son of Donald Barr.
Oh,
So here
there's the
you have
connection. Uh-huh.
here you have the father hires him to teach in the school without a college degree, and then William Barr, the son, ends up as Attorney General when they arrested him.
Yep.
And not people may not know this about William Barr, but William Barr spent 7 years with the CIA.
Yeah.
He was an attorney with them,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he had spent a lot of time with them. So there's a lot of CIA attachment there, but more than the CIA attachment, I think that you're going to find that some of the clients that he had, that he worked and he helped, a lot of them were tied to Israel and the Mossad.
Ah, okay.
Even one of the prime ministers, he was very close to one of the prime ministers. So he was certainly connected. And the reason why it's so important to know about his connections with this is because you've got to circle this thing back around to the fact that he would have these young girls in West Palm Beach and Palm Beach. He would ask young girls to come to his mansion and give him massages. And these girls were underage girls, and massages was just a code word for him sexually abusing them. And there were 37 of these girls that were actually found by the West Palm Beach police. They
Uh-huh.
had a case lined up with that first charge, James. They should have been able to have a strong enough case, and they had a strong enough case that they could have put Jeffrey Epstein in 2008, they could have put him in jail for the rest of his life back in 2008.
Right.
That never happened.
Wow.
Instead he got a sweetheart deal. And so the reason why this is such a big deal today, and the reason why we're doing this podcast, and a lot of people are really wanting to know what's going on, is people are thinking, how did he get that deal?
Right.
If he had all of those, if they had all that evidence against him, why did he not get that deal? Well, Acosta, who was the Southern District Attorney for the state of Florida back in 2008 when this happened, and signed off on that sweetheart deal, Acosta said in a Senate subcommittee that the reason that that happened was somebody told him that Epstein was intelligence. He was an intelligence, and that he was above his pay grade, and basically to leave him alone.
Oh, wow.
Now, and so that's where the mystery of all this thing is. Did he, why did the government back off prosecuting him in 2008 when they had enough then to put him away for the rest of his life?
Right. Right.
It wasn't until several years later when the Miami Herald did they really blew this case wide open by saying this sweetheart deal was something going on here. It's crooked.
Right.
Why did they not prosecute him? And when they brought all that to light with all those articles, then suddenly the government took back and said, "Hey, man, this guy, we got to arrest him and we got to go." But on that sweetheart deal, one of the things that's really important is that deal. Instead of all of those years, he only got 18 months. He only spent about a year, and he went to what we call the Glamour Slammer. He went to jail in Palm Beach with the sheriff's office there. He had a wing of the jail to himself. He was allowed to go out on work release. His work release was performed at his own offices, plush offices in downtown West Palm. And for 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, he didn't have to stay in jail. He went to his office.
Wow.
And he would only come back at night, 6 days out of seven for 12 hours. He was out. So, really, jail, which I called a glamour slammer, was nothing more to him than a bad hotel stay,
Oh,
when you think
no.
about it. So, the question is why?
Right.
What was it with the intelligence community? What did he do? Was he involved in some nuclear deal or something? Why would they do that?
Right.
And that's why that people today are so concerned about what is it that the government's not showing us?
Right.
Is there something there? Is it something that's going to maybe embarrass either the United States or maybe one of our allies?
Right.
Is it classified? Is it something that's highly secretive? Does it have to do with national security? We don't know. I mean, we don't
Right.
know. But the thing about it is, the government could just say no. He didn't have any ties to it. But James, before we leave tonight, where are we on time? By the way.
We have 7 minutes.
Okay. Before we leave tonight, we do have a blockbuster, and maybe when we do the notes up and present this particular thing, you might put this in. There's a blockbuster here tonight
Okay.
because something has happened since we've done these last podcasts. They have just released, this last week. There was an article released with some of the papers that have been released that people have dug down deep and found some things, and they have now found that there is a tie to the fact in these papers that Epstein was an FBI informant.
Wow. Okay.
And that's something now that, we pretty well have some documentation to state that he was an FBI informant. Now, what he was informing on, I have no idea.
Right.
But we do know that back during that time was, when we had this financial collapse, and maybe some of the people that ended up going to jail back during the housing collapse, maybe Epstein was the informant that got some of those guys in trouble.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe on top of that, maybe Jeffrey Epstein was telling the United States some of the things that was happening with these other countries and some of these weapons deals.
Right. Right.
And remember, weapon dealing was very, very prominent during this time because when the Soviet Union fell, they had all these weapons
Yep.
and that began to get on the black market.
Yep.
Everything from, grenade launchers to army tanks to missile launchers, everything,
Right. Right.
And so this whole world, this is a world that a lot of us have no information about. Very few people know about it, but there is a huge market in weapons on the black market. And in each one of these deals, and we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, you know that each one of these deals, probably Epstein got a piece of that,
Right. Right.
So that's another way that he could have got his wealth. So
Well, you said he was.
that's why he's called the mysterious Jeffrey Epstein.
Do we have any information? You mentioned he was connected to the Iran-Contra affair. Do we have any information or any credible, I guess you could say, evidence that he was involved or connected to Oliver North?
Well, we don't know, that he was involved, that he was connected to Oliver North, but we do know that the people that he was running with,
Hmm.
that these weapon dealers were tied to that very deal,
Gotcha.
and they were tied to North. And keep in mind, in any crime, you investigate any crime, particularly with a mob or anybody like this, you always follow the money, right? You
That's right.
follow the money. That's where you find where you find the principles by following the money.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you a question. What happens if you can't follow the money?
Yeah. Follow the timeline.
Well, yeah, you follow the timeline, but you need to follow that money, right? So guess what Epstein was good at? What?
Money.
Hiding money, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it makes perfectly logical sense, whether we have evidence or not. It doesn't take you long to jump over to that rock,
Exactly.
that if they were doing all these big deals and he was associated with all these weapons, these guys who sold weapons in the black market, and I mean very famous guys who did things all over the world. And keep in mind these, when you say one country or the other, these guys were contractors.
Right.
They didn't
Right.
have an allegiance hardly to any country.
Nope.
They were in it for the money.
Exactly.
And so they were probably playing all sides at all times in getting these weapons around everywhere. And I'm just about sure, and everybody's thinking that maybe some of these documents that are not being released would actually have some of the information of where Jeffrey Epstein was in all of these deals.
Right. Exactly. Wow. Well, that's a big, big blockbuster right there. I did not know he
Yeah,
was part of the FBI at all.
yeah. They just read an article just a few days ago where and I think it's some of the information that's already been out there, but they released so many documents. They found that somebody found it and looking at it that he was actually designated as an FBI informant.
So he
So
was an asset.
yeah, yeah. So,
Wow.
but even with that, come on, James,
Yeah.
37 girls, 37 victims.
Doesn't give you the right.
Doesn't give you the right, and the government finally did it right. Unfortunately, other people became victims as a result of that. But they finally did it right, put him in jail, and there he died in jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, back to that sweetheart deal, though, the other thing interesting about this is that the deal also said that the government would not prosecute anybody associated with these crimes either before, during, or afterwards.
Right.
So that's why this is a big deal right now with Maxine Ghislaine. That's why it's a big deal. She's in prison right now,
Right.
and that's where her appeal is going. Her appeal is basically saying back in 2008 in the sweetheart deal, the agreement was that the government would not prosecute anybody associated with him.
Exactly.
So the question is, will that stand up? Will she
Yep.
win her appeal with that? And
Yep.
so that's going to be very interesting to see in the future.
It will be.
But of course, the other side of that is that deal violated the law. I mean, the attorney could have that kind of deal. They do these sweetheart deals very too often in the country, and so they have the right to do that. And so the thing that the government's saying now with this last arrest, though, was that you violated the law back there because the law said you can do these deals, but guess what? You have to notify the victims
Yep.
that you're doing the deal.
Exactly.
And they
Exactly.
did not notify the victims. So,
Right.
the next chapter in this thing is going to be what happens to her while she's in jail.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you.
Yep. And
Good show.
we got some more stuff coming down the line. So until next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. Yep. For the life you save, it could be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional information and podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Peacemaker Network, and also encourage you to support the first responders, military, and law enforcement personnel by contributing to the Peacemaker Network. That's peacemakernetwork.com. All music and sound effects are courtesy of pixabay.com. That's pixabay.com. You can also support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, tag @CharlieCrimebuster, and then click the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified each time we drop one of our shows. Another more convenient way for you to listen to our podcasts, or for you to say to your smart speaker, play Charlie Crimebuster. If you have comments or suggestions, we would love to hear from you, so please send them to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, or you can call or text us at 407-917-2211. That's 407-917-2211. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again for another exciting crime episode with Charlie Crimebuster.